Hey guys, long time no see. So I'm here in London this week. That's why I haven't been doing many video reports. This is my so-called vacation where I'm only working, like 40 hours a week instead of my normal 80. The most interesting part here is the 5-hour time difference. So most days I go to bed like 2, 3 in the morning and I'm back up 7:30 in the morning. I mean, nothing's changed just because I'm across the Atlantic Ocean. But the time difference is so bizarre. I mean, it's great for working, but it's also different because, go to bed 2:30 in the morning. Most of my plays, well, some of the games, especially if I'm using a West Coast game, they haven't even started yet. The games on the East Coast, well, they're not even done yet until I get up in the morning and then I can see what the hell happened. And of course, I'm already done handicapping. I've updated the sites. I'm done. I'm out, on the town, doing the tourist thing with my wife, coming back. And of course, most of the other guys haven't even gotten up yet. They haven't even started handicapping. They haven't even updated their sites here, the handicappers online here with the company. So it's always strange. And then when it comes to football here, and I've maintained this for years, the NFL can say whatever it wants. It will never make it here in Europe. And I'll give you an example. So I'm staying in a nice Marriott, a full-scale Marriott here. It must have some 60-some channels here. Now, if you want to watch reruns of The Big Bang Theory, Family Guy, Scrubs, Frasier, you can find it on a zillion different channels. Property Brothers, any of the HGTV shows, you can find those reruns as well. Do you think anywhere among these 60 channels I could find the Monday night game, the Thursday night NFL game? No. Of the zillions, and I'm talking about a dozen different newspapers I have access to here, one NFL story? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. When they have the games here in Wembley, and I'm like 40 minutes from Wembley, when they have the games in Wembley, people show up because it's a spectacle. It's another excuse to go out and drink 70 or 80 pints. Of course, embellishing. They only drink 17 or 18 probably. I mean, it's another cause to have a celebration. It's a get-together. It's a spectacle. It's something unique. They do it 3 or 4 times a year. It's never going to catch on here. Seriously. I mean, it is cool to go down every single street and find, 14 different betting shops. Fish and chips betting shop. Fish and chips betting shop. Pub, fish and chips betting shop. That's what you find. The one thing we do take for granted, though, seriously, next time you're going down the street and you see Walmart, CVS, and Walgreens, that's the life. You don't realize how much you miss CVS, Walgreens, and Walmarts until you come here to Europe. Okay, let's get to your plays here today. The biggest play today, no ifs, ands, or buts, would be from Chris Jordan. The 12th ever triple your wager 3,000-star college football release of his 36-year career. It goes at 1:30 Eastern Time. It's the Conference USA championship game between UAB and Middle Tennessee State. He is 34-13-1 with triple your wager releases in all sports over the past 36 years, including 7-3-1 in college football. Last one he had, I believe, was Central Florida on New Year's Day last year, the 10.5-point underdog, beating Auburn outright. Of course, 2 years ago, the national championship game, Clemson outright over Alabama. Those were triple your wager plays. You get it for half price off by using coupon code CHRIS. This is even bigger than Thanksgiving Day, when he had the 3rd ever NFL 2,500-star release of his career with the Bears over the Lions. And keep in mind, $1 bettors with his 1,000-star plays or higher going back to 2006 have made a little over $163,000. Yeah, that's not a mistake, $163,000. So that is without a doubt the biggest play going on today's board. And FYI, if you have a package with me, I am on the same exact side. I took a peek before I started this video report as Chris is. So there you go. Shawn Michaels, yesterday, the 7th ever 150-dime play of his career in college football. He had won 5 in a row with these plays over the previous 3 weeks. He was on Buffalo last night. I was on Buffalo last night. I had a 15-dime best bet. What are you going to do? Buffalo up, what was it, 29-10 in the 3rd quarter? And Northern Illinois comes back from that 29-10 third quarter deficit. Northern Illinois, 13 unanswered points in the 4th quarter. Northern Illinois gets the go-ahead touchdown with like a minute 40 to go in the game, and Northern Illinois, the 3.5-point dog, wins the game outright. I mean, seriously. It's one of those games you mutter, in my case, your 17 or 18 favorite obscenities, and you have to move on because it's one of those games. Seriously. Now, I know, having done this for too long, that more often than not, you win more of those games than you lose. Of course, you don't want to hear that if you had Buffalo last night, and I understand that. But, I mean, it's just one of those wacky, strange games that you had no right to win if you had Northern Illinois. You had no right to lose if you had Buffalo, but it's one of those things. But I will tell you this, that gamblers and handicappers that focus on losses like that, you miss the next money-making opportunity that's staring in your face. It's why I never celebrate the wins. I don't lament the losses because, my God, it'll have you walking the plank and have you suicidal. Seriously. You just can't get hung up on those type of games because they'll drive you crazy. At the same time, you can't celebrate those damn winning streaks because, again, they're just as dangerous. You got to stay even keel. And still remember those favorite 17 or 18 obscenities when you lose games like last night's. Okay, let's get to a couple of complimentary plays. I'll do these in reverse chronological order. If you're going to play Clemson tonight, and the Pittsburgh game in the ACC Championship in Charlotte, I got to think you got to lay the 27.5 points. This is the second biggest line on the board. The biggest line is South Carolina in a makeup game tonight. Now, ironically, Clemson played probably its worst game of the season last week against South Carolina. Its defense gave up over 600 yards, 500 of them through the air to Jake Bentley of the Gamecocks. I got to think that Clemson comes back defensively here tonight. The other thing is that, for Pittsburgh to throw for 500 yards, it would probably take their quarterback 4 games to do so. Pittsburgh, the bread and butter is the ground game. I just don't see the Panthers getting the job done against a Clemson team that is number 2 in the nation in stopping the run and number 1 in the nation in terms of yards per carry yielded this season. This is a Clemson defense that gives up 2.23 yards per carry. I mean, my God, this Clemson defensive line may be as good as some defensive lines that are currently playing in the NFL. This Clemson defensive line may send 3 players to the NFL in the draft. Okay? I mean, that's the quality that this Clemson defense brings to the table. We just saw last week, when Pittsburgh played Miami of Florida, first time this season, the Panthers were held under 100 yards of rushing. Miami of Florida, not a great defense, totally stymied this Pittsburgh offensive attack. They sacked Kenny Pickett, the Pittsburgh quarterback, 6 times. They held Pittsburgh to a season-low 200 yards. They held them to 69 yards rushing, held them to 1 for 15 on third downs. A lot of people said, and even some of the Pitt players said, well, hey, they had already wrapped up the Coastal Division title. They already knew they were looking forward and looking ahead to this ACC championship game. I don't buy it for a minute. I think also that Dabo Swinney will have his team ready to play so much better, especially defensively, after the poor performance they put on against South Carolina. And hey, FYI, they played poor defensively against South Carolina, but there was nothing wrong with that damn offense. 56 points, 744 yards. Yeah, Pittsburgh is not going to know what hit them tonight, so if you play the game, I say you got to lay it. Last Saturday, my best bet, a 15-time best bet, was Alabama over Auburn. Alabama, for the second straight week, just like the Citadel, came out sluggish in the first half. Second half, a can of whoop-ass against Auburn, right? Against Georgia today. This is not a rematch of the team that Alabama played last year. No. Georgia was a better team last year. Alabama was not as good of a team last year. Alabama is better. Georgia is not. Georgia is not nearly as good defensively. Georgia is not as good offensively. Alabama is superior defensively. Alabama is much more explosive offensively. I think that you just forget about what happened last year when Alabama had to rally from the 13-0 halftime deficit and win 26-23 in overtime in the national title game. Just forget about that game. Remember this also. Little kids are running down the hallway screaming bloody murder. That's what that was, if you happen to hear that. Georgia last year ran for 133 yards on 45 carries, and that was with Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb. Now they got DeAndre Swift, who has 962 yards, averaging almost 7 yards a carry, and Elijah Holyfield, who's run for 896 yards and 6.7 yards per carry. But this Alabama defense is much, much better. They're only giving up 89 yards a game. They're giving up 2.7 yards per game, per carry in SEC play this season. I just don't see it happening. Georgia was completely shut down the ground game when they lost to LSU. The Tigers defense held them to 133 yards on 30 carries. This Alabama run defense is even better. I think that after 2 consecutive slow starts that Nick Saban is going to emphasize getting his Tide up to tempo in the first half of this game. Also, I think that Georgia, a team that last year wasn't that good at rushing the passer with only 32 sacks on the entire season, well, this year they only have 20 sacks on the season. That's second worst in the entire SEC. Plus, this Georgia team doesn't have a secondary that can compete with as good of a LSU secondary was. It's just mediocre. The Tide has won every single game this season by at least 20 points. Oh, what? Because we advanced to the SEC championship game? Because the game's being played in Georgia's backyard of Atlanta? That suddenly the Bulldogs are going to rise up and dethrone the Tide just because a better Georgia team gave a team from Alabama that was worse last year a battle? I don't think so. That's why I like Alabama in this one. And finally, Memphis and Central Florida. I know Central Florida's won 24 straight. I know Central Florida's playing at home. I know Central Florida can still run the ball. I know Memphis defensively isn't that good. I know Central Florida has had Memphis's number. But damn it, we don't have Mackenzie Milton. And I don't care that much for Daryl Mack. I know he's a all-purpose runner. He's not much of a passer, but I think today Memphis learned its lesson after not running the ball enough in the second half of that home loss when these two met, when they allowed Central Florida rally for that 31-30 win in the first go-round a couple of months ago, 31-30 back on October 13th. I think that Memphis team that blew a 16-point third quarter lead realizes its mistake. I think that they are just going to pound the ball relentlessly with Darrell Henderson, who's coming off an AAC single-season record for rushing with 1,699 yards, 8.6 yards per carry. And I think for once Memphis has Central Florida's number and pulls the upset in this spot. I think Memphis gets the job done finally in this series. So of the 3 plays, how would I rate them? I like Alabama number 1. I like Clemson a close second, and Memphis number 3. And those are your Saturday complimentary selections. I wish you well, guys, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this again.